You made the point that one of the reasons for declining crime is that a lot of these soft-on-crime prosecutors are either reducing charges, letting people out with no charges, or declining to prosecute more serious crimes.
Exactly. I mean, the statistics are only reflective of what is put into the system, right? So if you have a number of prosecutors across the country who are downgrading serious felonies to misdemeanors, it makes it look like violent crime or burglaries, like you're seeing on the side of your screen there taking place, aren't really happening. But when you go outside and you walk around in these cities or you ask people, they will say they know somebody who's been a victim of a crime, or they've been in a store like this where people come in and they grab all these goods. And then that, of course, deteriorates into a bigger situation where stores leave, there's no economic opportunity in certain neighborhoods, and therefore there is even more crime that continues to occur in the spiral. And so this is something that both Donald Trump is talking about and Joe Biden. Donald Trump, when he was in the office, he had Operation Legend, which of course was a partnership between the Department of Justice and local law enforcement, local mayor's offices to try and solve murders, for example, and to put federal charges onto some of these criminals because the local DA charges really weren't enough to scare them into not going into these repeat offender situations. So we'll see more of this as the campaign moves on. But in terms of what has been happening over the past 3 years, crime is up. People are feeling it.
Crime is always a subject of discussion and debate while campaigns barrel towards Election Day. So now that crime rates have been dropping, politicians that benefit from promising to lower crime rates are trying to figure out how to recoup their cash cow. There's such a variety of reasons across the country for the numbers, so we've jumped into a battle over legitimizing or delegitimizing them without paying any attention to why, mostly because everyone's biases and preferences for who they want in office determines their argument, and voters are left believing whoever they trust. So the former president takes the faith MAGA has in him and scares the hell out of them with his over-the-top rhetoric.
And I will not let him turn the USA into a crime-filled, disease-ridden dumping ground. You know, people with terrible, terrible disease that is easily caught, I have to say, they're pouring into our country in addition to everything else.
After his extraordinary mishandling of COVID, Trump really should stay away from claiming that he has any experience in recognizing how easy it is to catch on to terrible diseases. But anyway, he did go with the combo scare tactic of claiming that Biden is trying to usher in crime while attributing it to immigration in the most dehumanizing terms, so that the fear and hatred can continue to drive his followers into raging reactionaries.
And this is going to continue to move in our direction on the issues that matter. If you look at the border crisis, on the economy, on the handling of crime, on the handling of national security, President Trump has a double-digit lead, in some cases over 30 points on each of those main issues. And this is the stage that Joe Biden is going to step on today for the State of the Union. There is no resetting his campaign. There is no resetting the failed administration he's had on those key issues that are important to voters.
Bragging about how many citizens they've scared into believing that crime will be an insignificant number under Trump isn't proof that his policies are effective. It's just an acknowledgement of how well their drumbeat of doom and gloom has been working. We never talk about appropriate measures to prevent crime by identifying the reasons many people may commit the crimes that are only used to scare us into voting for more punishment. No other country on earth incarcerates more of its citizens than the United States of America. But instead of looking at the reasons why our society generates so many criminals, we stop at the empty satisfaction of prison. Maybe because in our capitalistic society, the business of crime pays well to those that profit off of it in the form of running prisons to supplying endless firearms to fearful citizens that don't know if they're going to be the next victim. Opportunistic politicians know this, and they play it in their favor.
We also advanced, as you've seen the summary, cuts to some of the agencies that we believe are really overreaching and have been turned in some ways against the American people. We're going to cut 3% from DOJ, 7% from the ATF, 6% from the FBI, and 10% from the EPA, and that's just a start. We have a lot more priorities and things that we need to advance.
So since we're caught up with our out-of-control crime problem and Republicans' false claims that police are demoralized, defunded, and void of any power to fight it in the streets, why is anyone still supporting MAGA's calls for cuts to our law enforcement agencies? I feel like it has something to do with a criminal that they work for, and he's not shy about his disdain for the rule of law.
But I don't want to be prosecuted because I decided to do something that is very much for the good of the country and actually for the good of the world. A president shouldn't have that on his mind, and he has to have a free and clear mind when he makes very big decisions. or it's going to be nothing more than a ceremonial post. You'll be president, it'll be a wonderful thing, and you won't do anything because you don't want to be hit by your opponent or hit by somebody else, because who wants to leave office and go through what I've gone through? If you're going to make a big decision as president and you're afraid that as soon as you get out, you're going to be indicted by the opposition party, by the Democrats, by the radical left lunatics who will indict you and try and put you in prison because you're trying to do something good for the country, even if it's severe, the severe may be a great thing for the country. They have to have presidential immunity. If you don't have immunity for a president, and I'm not talking about only me, if you don't have immunity for a president, you will not be able to function properly. You will not be able to do the right thing for the country.
And of course, he claims to need immunity for going after terrorists that he just can't recall.
Some decisions are very tough. I can tell you that as a president, that some decisions to make are very tough. I took out ISIS, and I took out some very big people from the standpoint of a different part of the world. Two of the leading terrorists, probably the two leading terrorists ever that we've ever seen in this world. And those are big decisions. I don't want to be prosecuted for it.
Shutting down illegal activities for powerful politicians carries much less urgency in their circles as they promise to shore up our crime-ridden society. And Speaker Johnson doesn't care that his party's sudden push to only defund the police that are hot on Trump's trail of his life of crime speaks to their flimsy principles that they want voters to support them on. Their initial reactions to his blatant acts of lawlessness versus their political conclusions about him is pretty transparent.
President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office as an ordinary citizen. Unless the statute of limitations is run, still liable for everything he did while he's in office. Didn't get away with anything yet. We have a criminal justice system in this country. We have civil litigation. And former presidents are not immune from being accountable by either one.
How do you reconcile your Trump endorsement with the fact that you called him practically and morally responsible for January 6th and the fact that he insulted you and your wife repeatedly?
On February the 25th, 2021, shortly after the attack on the Capitol, I was asked a similar question, and I said I would support the nominee for president even if it were the former president.
Mr. McConnell, in April of last year, you indicated, you didn't really directly answer the question as to whether or not you were comfortable with Mr. Trump if he was in the middle of criminal trials and indictments, he was the nominee. I presume that means you're comfortable with him.
I don't have anything to add to what I just said. I said in February of 2021, shortly after the attack on the Capitol, that I would support President Trump if he were the nominee of our party, and he obviously is going to be the nominee of our party.
Principles, morals, standards all go flying out the window when your party's power structure is built off of following the leader with a penchant for breaking the law. The soon-departing Senate GOP leader, Mitch McConnell there, is getting out so that he doesn't have to keep acting like he didn't warn the country of Trump's criminality or answer for his part in promoting it. There's new suckers ready to take his place at Trump's feet anyway.
President Trump spoke to the voters today across our country, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, about the future. We have to go back to that future, 2017 to 2020. We want those 4 years one more time.